She was sitting alone at the wedding until a stranger whispered, "Pretend you're with me." The music was loud, laughter filled the air, and the chandeliers sparkled above. Everyone was dancing, hugging, taking photos, living in the magic of the night. Everyone, except her. Clara sat alone at the very edge of the wedding hall. Her champagne glass was untouched, her eyes fixed on the dance floor where her ex-boyfriend swayed with his new fiancée, the bride's cousin. Every beat of the music felt like a cruel reminder that she didn't belong here. She had almost skipped the wedding, but the bride, her childhood best friend, had begged her to come. So here she was, dressed in a soft blue gown, her heart breaking quietly in the corner. People noticed her, of course, whispering, pity in their eyes. The girl who was left behind. Clara swallowed hard, pretending she didn't care. But deep down, she wanted to disappear. That's when it happened. A shadow leaned closer. A warm voice whispered near her ear, soft enough that only she could hear. "Pretend you're with me." She blinked, startled. Turning her head, she saw him, a man, tall, with dark hair and kind, steady eyes. He wasn't someone she recognized. His tuxedo fit him perfectly, but there was no smugness in his smile, only a gentle warmth. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled, extending his hand as if they had known each other forever. "Trust me. Just pretend." Before Clara could protest, he slipped into the chair beside her, leaning close enough that the whole room could see. Suddenly, people's whispers changed. Their gazes softened. And for the first time that night, Clara didn't look abandoned. Her heart raced. She didn't even know his name. Yet something about the way he carried himself made her feel safe. The stranger reached across the table, brushing her hand lightly as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm Daniel, and right now I'm whoever you need me to be." Clara's lips parted in surprise. She should have pushed him away, demanded answers, but instead she laughed. A soft, shaky laugh that felt like breaking free after holding her breath too long. "Daniel," she repeated, "why are you doing this?" His eyes softened. "Because no one should sit alone at a wedding." And with that, he pulled her up from her chair, leading her onto the dance floor. The world blurred. The music swelled. For a moment, Clara forgot about the past, the whispers, the ache in her chest. All she could feel was his hand steadying hers, his eyes locked on hers as though she was the only person in the room. She didn't know who Daniel really was or why he had chosen her. But in that moment, as the crowd melted into a blur of lights and music, she realized something. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin when a stranger whispers, "Pretend you're with me." The dance floor glowed under strings of golden lights. Laughter and music swirled around them, yet Clara could hear only the steady rhythm of Daniel's heartbeat as he held her close. Her steps were clumsy at first. She wasn't used to being seen, but Daniel's grip was firm, guiding her gently, as though he'd been waiting all night just to lead her into this moment. "You're shaking," he whispered. Clara looked down, embarrassed. I don't belong here." Daniel's smile was small but steady. "Tonight, you belong with me." Her throat tightened. No one had said words like that to her in years, and as he spun her, her blue gown fanning like a wave, she caught sight of her ex on the edge of the crowd. He looked stunned, watching her laugh in Daniel's arms. For the first time, it didn't hurt. The music shifted, slowing into something soft, almost tender. Clara hesitated, but Daniel leaned in, his breath warm near her temple. Forget them. Forget all of it. Just be here. So she did. For the first time in so long, she allowed herself to be seen, not as the girl who was left behind, but as a woman who still had a heart worth holding. When the song ended, people clapped, couples kissed, but Clara just stood there, breathless, staring at Daniel. She had so many questions, but only one spilled out. Why me? Daniel's eyes held hers, deep and steady. Because you looked like you needed someone, and maybe so did I. Later that night, Clara slipped outside to breathe. The wedding lights faded into the distance as she found herself in a quiet garden. The stars shimmered above, the air cool against her flushed skin. She thought Daniel had gone, that maybe he was just a fleeting kindness written into one strange night. But then, footsteps. You disappeared. His voice came softly. Clara turned, and there he was again, hands in his pockets, his tuxedo jacket draped casually over one shoulder. The world suddenly felt less lonely. I didn't mean to, she whispered. It's just, all of this, it feels like I'm pretending. Daniel stepped closer, the light from the lanterns brushing across his jawline. Sometimes pretending is the first step to remembering what's real. Her chest tightened at his words. He didn't know her story, her heartbreak, her scars, yet somehow he saw her. She wanted to ask who he really was, why he was here, why he cared at all, but instead she just said, "Thank you for tonight." Daniel's gaze softened, and for a fleeting moment it felt like the universe had slowed, like the night itself was holding its breath. You don't have to thank me. Maybe this was never pretend. The night grew quieter as the music inside softened. From the garden, Clara could still hear the faint laughter and clinking glasses, but here, under the lantern glow, it felt like another world. Daniel leaned against the stone railing, his eyes tracing the stars. Clara finally found the courage to ask what had been burning in her chest since the moment he appeared. Why were you even at this wedding? I don't remember seeing you before. He chuckled softly, lowering his gaze to her. You wouldn't have. I wasn't really invited. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? Daniel took a slow breath. My younger sister is the bride's friend. She asked me to drop something off, and I ended up staying for the ceremony. I figured I'd slip out quietly after. But then, he paused, his voice gentle. Then I saw you. Clara froze, her heart racing. You saw me? Yes, Daniel said, his tone steady, almost reverent. You were sitting there, alone, trying to smile while the whole room pretended not to stare, and I thought, no one should go through that. Not tonight. Clara's chest tightened. The walls she'd built for years trembled under his words. You don't even know me, she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. Maybe not. But I know what it's like to be invisible in a room full of people. I know what it feels like to wish for someone to just notice. The honesty in his voice cut through her like light in the dark. Suddenly, Clara wasn't staring at a stranger. She was staring at someone who understood. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back, forcing a laugh. You make it sound like fate. Maybe it is, Daniel said quietly, his gaze locked on hers. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was alive, filled with something unspoken, something neither of them had expected when the night began. For the first time, Clara felt that this moment wasn't about pretending anymore, and that terrified her. The wedding ended in a blur of music and glitter. Clara barely remembered the last songs, the farewells, the sparkle of sparklers as the bride and groom drove away. All she could feel was the echo of Daniel's words, the warmth of his hand steadying hers. By the time she got home, the city was asleep. She slipped out of her gown, laid it gently across a chair, and sat in the silence of her small apartment. The night replayed in her head like a dream she wasn't sure had been real. The way he whispered, "Pretend you're with me." The way he looked at her like she wasn't invisible. The way, for a few fleeting hours, her broken heart hadn't felt so heavy. But reality pressed back in. Daniel was a stranger. Weddings had a way of making people reckless, of pulling strangers together only to send them back to their separate lives. Clara told herself not to expect anything, not to hope, not to believe in something that could vanish with the morning light. Still, as she drifted off to sleep, her last thought was of him. The next day, sunlight spilled through the cafe windows as Clara sat with her coffee, trying to drown the ache with routine. She told herself she'd forget, that it was just a night, nothing more. And then, "Is this seat taken?" The voice, familiar, warm. Her head snapped up. There he was, Daniel, standing in front of her, holding a cup of coffee, that same gentle smile on his lips. Her heart nearly stopped. How did you?" He sat down without waiting for her permission, setting his cup on the table. "Your friend, the bride, mentioned this was your favorite cafe. I figured I'd try my luck." She blinked, stunned. "You actually came?" Daniel leaned forward, his eyes steady on hers. "Clara, last night wasn't pretend. At least, not for me." Her breath caught. The world outside the cafe kept moving, cars passing, people laughing, life going on. But inside, everything stilled. For the first time, Clara let herself wonder. Maybe this wasn't just a fleeting kindness. Maybe this was the beginning of something real. The cafe meeting should have been the start of something gentle, something new. But fate rarely plays fair. A week later, Clara attended another gathering tied to the wedding celebrations, a farewell brunch for relatives leaving town. She hadn't planned to go, but her best friend begged her. So she dressed simply, tied her hair back, and promised herself she'd just smile and leave quickly. But the moment she walked in, her chest tightened. Her ex was there, with his fiancée, laughing, glowing, looking like he had the perfect life. Clara froze in the doorway, the past crashing over her like a storm. Every memory of being left behind, every night of tears, every unanswered why rose to the surface. She wanted to run, but before she could, Daniel appeared at her side, as if he had been waiting for her. His hand brushed hers under the tablecloth, steady, grounding. "Breathe," he whispered, his voice low enough for only her. Clara swallowed hard, her eyes burning. "I can't do this, not with him here." Daniel leaned closer, his gaze firm. "Then don't face him alone. Let me stand with you." Her heart ached. Part of her wanted to believe him, to lean on him, but another part screamed, Don't trust, don't get hurt again." The brunch dragged on. Her ex caught her eye once, his smirk sharp, as if he remembered every piece of her he had broken. His fiancée beamed beside him, oblivious. And then, as if fate demanded it, he walked over. "Clara," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with false kindness. "You look, well. I didn't expect to see you here." Clara's throat closed. Every muscle tensed. She wanted to snap back, to protect herself, but the words wouldn't come. Before she could answer, Daniel stood. His presence was calm but commanding, his eyes locked on the man who once left Clara shattered. "Funny," Daniel said evenly. "I did expect to see you, and honestly, I'm glad, because now you can see exactly what you lost." The table went silent. Her ex blinked, caught off guard. "And you are?" Daniel slipped his arm gently around Clara's shoulders, not as an act, but with quiet certainty. "The man who knows her worth, the one who'll never let her sit alone in a corner again." Clara's breath caught. The whole room seemed to exhale at once, whispers rushing around them. Her ex's smirk faltered, replaced by something sharp. Jealousy, maybe? Regret? But it didn't matter anymore, because in that moment, Clara realized something. Daniel wasn't pretending. He wasn't playing a part in a story to save her from humiliation. He meant every word. And for the first time in years, she felt protected, seen, wanted. But protection came with a cost, because letting Daniel fight for her meant letting him in. And Clara wasn't sure if her heart was ready for that reckoning. After the brunch, Clara couldn't stop replaying what Daniel had said. "The man who knows her worth." The words followed her, like a melody she wasn't ready to believe in. Days passed, and though she tried to bury herself in work at the small publishing house where she was an editor, her thoughts kept drifting back to him. His steady gaze, his quiet strength, the way he made her feel as if she mattered. Then one morning, her phone buzzed. "Daniel. Lunch today? My office. I owe you a tour." Clara stared at the message, her heart pounding. He wanted her to see his world. By noon, she found herself standing outside a sleek glass building downtown. She almost turned back, her nerves screaming this was too much. But then Daniel appeared in the lobby, his tie loosened, his smile easy. "You came," he said simply, as though he'd never doubted she would. He led her through the buzzing corridors of his architecture firm. People greeted him warmly, but Clara noticed something. Daniel didn't just lead, he listened. Every intern, every assistant, he stopped to ask how they were, really ask. And they lit up when he did. It struck her. He wasn't just kind to her. This was who he was. In his office, surrounded by sketches of buildings that seemed to rise out of dreams, he handed her coffee and leaned against the desk. "So," he said, his tone light, but his eyes steady. "Tell me about your world." Clara laughed nervously. "My world? It's not as glamorous as yours. I edit manuscripts in a corner office with broken blinds." "Words build worlds," Daniel said softly. "That sounds more powerful than glass and steel to me." Her chest tightened. No one had ever valued her work like that before. As they talked, hours slipped away. She told him about her love for books as a child, how stories had saved her on nights when loneliness swallowed her whole. He shared how architecture became his anchor after losing his father, how creating spaces of beauty felt like building hope out of grief. By the time they walked out into the evening air, the city lights twinkling around them, Clara felt something stir in her chest. Something fragile, but alive. Maybe this wasn't just healing from her past. Maybe this was the start of her second chance. And as Daniel held the door for her, his eyes lingering on hers a moment too long, she realized he was hoping for the same. For weeks, Clara and Daniel's worlds began to intertwine. Coffee dates turning into late-night calls, laughter slipping into silence that felt comfortable instead of heavy. For the first time in years, Clara's heart wasn't weighed down by what she had lost, but lifted by what she was beginning to find. But healing is never a straight line. One evening, as Clara left her office, she found her ex waiting outside. His fiancée wasn't with him, just the man who had once broken her into pieces. "Clara," he said, stepping forward, "we need to talk." Her stomach clenched. "There's nothing left to say." But he smirked, that same cruel edge she remembered too well. "You think Daniel's different? He's not. Men like him don't stay. He'll get bored, just like I did." The words cut deep, like a knife reopening an old wound. Clara forced herself to walk away, but by the time she reached home, the poison of doubt had already spread. A few nights later, Daniel invited her to a dinner with his colleagues. It should have been easy, but Clara felt the weight of her ex's words pressing on her chest. All evening she smiled, but her laughter was thinner, her eyes distant. Daniel noticed. Of course he did. When they stepped out into the night, he stopped her gently. "Clara, what's wrong?" Her throat tightened. I don't know if I can do this. What if you realize I'm not worth it? What if you leave too?" The silence between them was sharp, aching. Daniel's face shifted, something flickering in his eyes. Pain. "Clara," he said slowly, "there's something I haven't told you." Her breath caught. He exhaled, his jaw tightening. "I was married once, years ago. She left me, said I was too focused on fixing everyone else's world when I couldn't even fix my own. Since then, I haven't let anyone in. Not until you." The confession hung heavy in the air. Clara's chest ached. The man who seemed unshakable carried cracks of his own, and now both of their pasts stood between them, hers filled with betrayal, his filled with abandonment. They stood under the city lights, two people scarred by love, wondering if their wounds would pull them apart or finally bind them together. Clara couldn't sleep that night. Daniel's words were played in her mind about the wife who had walked away, about the pieces of himself he had hidden from the world. She realized she wasn't the only one afraid of love. He was too. The next evening, as rain drummed softly against the city streets, Daniel asked her to meet him at a small rooftop cafe. The air smelled of coffee and rain, the city glowing below like a sea of golden lights. When Clara arrived, he was already there, waiting, his hair damp, his suit jacket abandoned, sleeves rolled to his elbows, as though he hadn't wanted to waste a second. "Clara," he began, his voice low, urgent, "I need you to hear me." She hesitated, her heart pounding. "Daniel?" But he stepped closer, closing the space between them. His eyes burned with something raw, unguarded. "I can't promise I won't make mistakes. I can't promise the past won't haunt me sometimes. But what I can promise is this." He took her hands, steadying them against the tremor in his own. "I won't leave. Not when it's hard. Not when you're scared. Not when you feel unworthy. Because, Clara, you are worth everything." Her breath caught, tears blurring the city lights behind him. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing hers, his words trembling, but certain. "I'm done pretending this is just chance. I'm in love with you." The world seemed to fall silent. The rain, the city, the heartbeat in her chest, everything stilled. Clara's tears slipped free,
Not from pain this time, but from the terrifying, beautiful truth she could no longer deny. She cupped his face in her hands, her voice shaking but steady. "You're not the only one. I've been so afraid, Daniel, but I love you too." And then, under the rain, surrounded by the hum of the city, they kissed. Not as strangers, not as people pretending, but as two souls finally choosing each other.
For days after their rooftop confession, Clara felt like she was walking on air. She woke up smiling, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Daniel wasn't just a fleeting kindness anymore. He was part of her every sunrise, her every thought. But even the brightest light casts shadows. Her ex reached out again. This time, not with arrogance, but with regret. He wanted to apologize, to make peace. Clara didn't want to meet him, but a part of her knew she had to. Not for him, for herself. So one afternoon, she sat across from him in a quiet cafe, her hands steady on the table. "You broke me," she said plainly. No anger, just truth. "And for a long time, I thought it was my fault. But it wasn't. I was enough. You just didn't see it." Her ex opened his mouth, searching for excuses, but Clara held up her hand. "You don't get to explain. You don't get to rewrite it. I'm not here for you. I'm here for me. To let go." And with that, she stood, leaving behind the chains she had carried for too long. That night, she found Daniel waiting outside her apartment. His hands were shoved in his pockets, his eyes uncertain. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," he admitted. "I don't want to push you, Clara. I needed to know if you're choosing me, not because you're afraid of being alone, not because you're running from your past, but because you want us." Her heart thudded. This was it, the reckoning, the moment everything narrowed into a single choice. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but clear. "Daniel, I'm not pretending anymore. I choose you, not as a shield, not as an escape. I choose you because with you, I feel alive. I feel seen." For a heartbeat, silence. Then Daniel's face broke into a smile, soft, relieved, radiant. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like a man who had waited a lifetime. And in that embrace, Clara knew she hadn't just chosen him. She had chosen herself, her worth, her healing, her second chance.
We invite you to join Lightstories if this story strikes a chord with you, makes you smile, or stirs up strong emotions in you. Each story is meant to uplift, heal, and remind you of the beauty that comes from human connection. Share this story with someone who believes in kindness and second chances by clicking the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell. Keep your heart open till we cross paths again, because you never know when someone might ask, "Can I join you here?"